Well, hello, Nativity Bible Heads. It is Dr. Wayne, and it is time for a Sunday morning power Bible study. We are dealing with the text for the All Saints Day, right? What's All Saints Day? All Saints Day is, well, for the Episcopal Church, it's become we kind of like wrap together the All Hallows Eve with the All Saints and the All Souls Day. And we make it a celebration of all those who have gone to see the Lord ahead of us. So it's kind of essentially, you can think of it as like the church's Memorial Day. So it's not just about those people who have been, canonized as saints. It also recognizes those who have been saintly examples for us and people in our life who have gone on to their final reward. So essentially, overall, what we celebrate on All Saints Day isn't the saints, okay? What we are celebrating is the grace of Jesus Christ, the grace of God as expressed through Jesus Christ to the saints, and how those people in our lives have manifested that grace and how that has impacted us in our pilgrimages as well. So our passages, our first lesson comes from the book of Isaiah, chapter 25. This same passage was one that we used on Easter Sunday. Yeah. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but listen for those things which look beyond the death that we experience in this age, and and look forward to that which is coming, which is what's next. Okay, so Isaiah chapter 25 verses 6 through 9. Here it is. On this mountain. By the way, this mountain is a reference to Mount Zion, the mound in Jerusalem. Jerusalem was believed to have been a city built on 7 hills, and Mount Zion was the highest of those, although so it's not really a mountain, but the mountains were considered back in those days, like, the answer to the question is, where do you meet God? Well, you go to the mountain, right? Well, which one? Well, it depends on which God. So here you go, Mount Zion. On this mountain, the Lord of hosts, that's capital L-O-R-D, which is the covenant name, Yahweh, the Lord of hosts will make a feast for all people. Notice the all peoples. This is an inclusive thing, not just the elect, not just those who are the good ones, right? That's our word. So it is very, not eclectic, very universalistic, okay, in its outlook. A feast of rich food, a feast of well-aged wines, all the things you want for a feast, right? Not going diet with a big feast, right? This is when you throw out your principles against what you're going to eat. This is where you just chow down on something sumptuous, right? Of rich food filled with marrow, yes, right, and well-aged wines strained clear. Those are the best kind. You don't want the ones with the dregs, okay? Exactly. And he will destroy on this mountain the shroud that is cast over all peoples, the sheet that is spread over all nations. This shroud, this sheet, are expressions of those things that, the covering of somebody who's dead. So it's like a removal of death, okay? He will remove the shroud, the sheet that is spread over who? Everyone, yeah, all peoples, all nations. Anytime you see that word nations in Scripture, it is a definite reference to those outside the community of faith. Nations refers to the unclean, and that's our word, the unclean. Those are like, oh, really, them? Yeah, them, okay. Over all peoples, all the nations, he will swallow up death forever. Fits that theme. If you're going to take away that shroud, that sheet, yeah, well, that means death is gone. Okay. Also, the sheet and the shroud is a reference to the expression of mourning. A lot of times when people were doing mourning, they would put themselves in sackcloth and ashes, right? So that's also a reference to those things that that accompany mourning. Okay, gone. He will swallow up death forever. Then the Lord God will, get this, wipe away every tear from wipe away the tears from their faces, and the disgrace of his people he will take away from all the earth. Oh, his people. Remember, this isn't saying, it means that those who have put their faith in the Lord and have suffered for it, there will no longer be that distinction, okay? That distinction is removed, okay? Because of who God is, not because of who we are. And the disgrace of his people he will take away from all the earth, for the Lord has spoken. By the way, that expression about wiping away tears from all faces, we're going to see that referenced again in our reading from Revelation, which is also a reading for today on All Saints' Day. It will be said on that day, "Lo, this is our God. We have waited for him so that he might save us. This is the Lord for whom we have waited. Let us be glad and rejoice in his salvation." So ultimately, what will become known to everyone, which is what this is about. This is something that's visible to everyone. It's not just a spiritual exercise or only for certain people that get to experience it. It's for all people. This is the Lord for whom we have waited. Let us be glad. This is our God. We have waited for him so that he might what? Save us. Yeah. It's an ultimate confession that that our God, that God that we choose to serve on this terrestrial plane, that whatever ill we may have experienced because we're self-serving, that will be wiped away. All things, it's like our faith in God and who God is for the world, it will become known, and there will be a recognition of that universally. So this is our opening salvo into our text for All Saints' Day, and it's a fitting one because it is apocalyptic in nature. Apocalyptic is the words for the book of Revelation, by the way, the Hebrew or the Greek word that gets translated Revelation is apocalypsis. Okay, what's apocalypse? It's an unveiling. Okay, there's this Semitic belief that how are things going to turn out? How are things going to turn out? It's all veiled, okay? It's something that is, nobody really knows what it's going to look like. But the unveiling gives us a picture now of what it's going to look like then, okay? Apocalyptic is about how the Lord is choosing to go beyond just giving us good words of like, oh, it's going to be okay. Oh, if the people would just change their ways, then things would be. No, none of that. Is simply a foregleam into the end and how things are going to turn out. Ultimately, the present be damned kind of a thing, all right? Now, our response from the Psalms is from Psalm 24. We've heard this psalm before. It is a psalm that we have used in other contexts. This is a psalm. It's liturgical in nature. It's a kind of an enthronement psalm. Listen to this. The earth is the Lord's, and all that is in it, the world and all who dwell therein. See the context for this as a response to the apocalyptic Isaiah passage, right? For it is he who formed it upon the seas, Remember the myth of creation, the creation story that we have in Genesis 1 is that what was there? A whole lot of seas, okay? This mystical confusion, this mystical chaos, the torrential storm that's out there. And what creation is in Genesis 1 is the Lord injecting grace into it, word separating that chaos and making a place of sanity inside the chaos, okay? It is the Lord, the world, for it is He who founded it upon the seas, okay? That's what it's referring to, that creation thing. And made it firm upon the rivers of the deep. Remember, one of the things that we have in the creation story is the thing of that he separated waters from waters, and what did that reveal? Oh, a firmament. Oh, no, that was the land. The firmament was, I beg your pardon, is the thing that we call sky. Okay, that's like there's this invisible force that's keeping the chaos that's above us from coming down on us, as opposed to the land below us, which is a barrier for the chaos, the waters below us. That's the cosmological picture of what we have in Genesis 1. And this is a reference to it. For it is He who founded it upon the seas and made it from... So the opening thing in this psalm is an ode to like who God is. Who is this God that we are enthroning, okay? Who is He? What has He done? Well, He made us. He made everything that's in it. Yes, that one, the one who separated waters from waters, right? Then there comes a question response. We have a couple of those. Here's the question. Who can ascend the hill of the Lord? Remember the hill, the mountain of God, Mount Zion, yeah. Who can ascend the hill of the Lord, and who can stand in His holy place? This is a versical response. If you think of it as a hymn/chant of enthronement, it's something that might be uttered by the worship leader or the priest, right? Out to the, who can ascend the hill of the Lord? Who can stand in His holy place? Now we get the response. Those who have clean hands and a pure heart, who have not pledged themselves to falsehood, nor sworn by what is a fraud, they shall receive a blessing from the Lord and a just reward from the God of their salvation. Such is the generation of those who seek Him, of those who seek your face, O God of Jacob. Good response, right? This is, those who have clean hands and a pure heart, not pledged themselves to vote, nor sworn by what is a fraud. One of the things that we find this theme in this is kind of an apocalyptic psalm, if you will, is the idea that those who have gone before stood by their faithfulness. They stood by their faith, and it is their faith that led to their downfall, right? So consequently, that's why we would see something like this. That little dictum, O God of Jacob, this is just one of those euphemisms we have for the Lord that we see in Scripture. All right. Lift up your heads, O gates. Lift them high, O everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. You see how this enthronement psalm is... kings would have enthronements when they ascended to the throne. And this is kind of an apocalyptic one in that it is looking toward the end when we see that the true king of all is God, okay? And so an enthronement psalm for God, right? And the King of glory shall come in. And then we have the last question response versicle. Who is this King of glory? Good question. The Lord. This is the covenant name for God. Strong and mighty, the Lord, mighty in battle. The militaristic imagery here emanates from the idea of the Lord of hosts, the Lord of the heavenly hosts, okay? The world back then was pictured that there's always battle going on. There's always power going against power. Nothing's changed, right? But there's always power working against power. Who's going to win? There's always a fight going on. So consequently, well, what's happening up in the heavenlies? Same thing, yeah. So it's really a projection, if you think, of the way we are here. We project the same thing up there. It's kind of a Platonic way of seeing things. Remember Plato's ideals of what we have up in the heavenlies and the eternal sphere is just what we have down here is just a reflection of that, and up there is the perfect thing. Well, it's like same thing. All right, so see that as a response to the promise of Isaiah chapter 25. Again, something that stands in common, is that the idea that it's a revelation of the true reality. Like, this is going to happen. Don't you dare get so upset in what you see happening here today, right now. Don't let that deter you from knowing what's coming up, okay? What our true future is, what our true heritage is, what everybody will eventually see that what we know actually is right, and it is going to come to fruition. All right, let's move on. Now, I'm not going to do the gospel fourth this time. I'm going to do it now, and then so our next two passages are from John 11, and then we're going to go to Revelation 21. The reason why I want to do it that way is because I think it makes more sense into the chronological nature of our narratives and what we're celebrating today. So John chapter 11, what is it? It is a portion of that account in John's gospel where he raises Lazarus, not Lazarus. Whoever says Lazarus, shame on you. It's Jesus was from Nazareth. He raises Lazarus. Okay, got it? All right. Who is Lazarus? Lazarus was the brother of Mary and Martha, right? And now of Bethany. Now, in John chapter 11, verses I think it's 32 to 45, we come into the middle of what's happening, and here we go. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, this is Mary now, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. She was filled with it's not remorse, what am I thinking? Grief, right? Now, Mary had a sister, Martha. We don't see the interaction with Martha right here, but she earlier, just before this, to Jesus, she's the one to whom Jesus said, she said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. So she went through her expression of grief to Jesus, right? And in her response to Jesus, when she said, if you were here, my brother would not have died, this is where she actually confessed, oh yeah, the resurrection, and that's when Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, they will live, and everyone who believes in me will never. Do you believe this? And then Martha gives her her confession. By the way, one of the things that we see in John's gospel that is unique to John's gospel is that that confession, that famous confession of Peter that we have from the famous confession of Peter that we have from the Caesarea Philippi. Who do the people say that I am? And we get this confession from Peter that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. You know what? Peter doesn't say that in the Gospel of John. Who does? Martha. Yeah. Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world. Yeah. So Jesus had his grief interaction with Martha. This one now is with Mary, and she is not so easily consoled, okay? Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping. By the way, that word weeping, when it describes the Jews that came with her, it is not the grief that comes from the heart. It's the grief that's expressed through weeping and wailing. That it's kind of like something that you're paid to do. I'm not saying that that's what these were, because you would have paid weeping and wailers back then. But this isn't an expression of, it's kind of like the obligatory weeping, okay? You get that? Now, this is important because of something that we're going to get here very shortly. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews came with her also weeping, that, the obligatory weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. You get the degree to which John is trying to describe how this Jesus, this physical manifestation of the eternal Word of God, genuine sympathy, empathy even, right? He said, "Where have you laid him?" And they said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. This is the old Jesus wept passage that you have from your from John's Gospel in the King James Version. This is not the same word for weeping. This is the word dekreo, which is where we get the word cry. Jesus wept. This is not the obligatory kind of weeping that you have, that you're expected to show, or that's required to be, incumbent upon people who encounter somebody who's lost a loved one. This is an expression of genuine sympathy, genuine care, okay? This is something that is heartfelt, and that's why we have this thing where it said before that that he was disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. That's what sets us up for this, okay? Jesus began to weep. Verse 36. So the Jews said, by the way, the expression the Jews in the Gospel of John, it's not meant to be anti-Semitic. It's not to be anything anti-Jewish even. It's that they are a foil for Jesus to reveal himself. They are think of them as like the backboard, okay? The backboard, in basketball, you've got the rim, you got the backboard. It's not the same thing, but they are part of the same apparatus, right? But the Jews are that backboard, that thing that allows Jesus to express who he is, right? So the Jews said, "See how he loved him," okay? As opposed to these other Jews, listen to this. But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man, have kept this man from dying?" We had that story, I think it was last Sunday or sometime recently, about Jesus healing a blind man. Now, was that Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus? Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind? Get the fact that there are two different reactions. One, a genuine thing of perceiving exactly who he was. See how he loved him. And versus the others who were like, he could have, but he did that with that. Couldn't he kept this guy from dying? Well, this is that foil. It is going to allow Jesus to then reveal something about himself. Remember, everything that we have in John's Gospel is trying to give us a picture, answering the question, answering the question, who is this Jesus? And also, what's in it for someone who does believe in this Jesus? Then that is what he's trying to institute belief, okay, to get us to see that there is some genuine benefit. The Johannine community, the context in which the John's Gospel arose, was a community of faith that was going through a separation, if you will, with the synagogues, and so consequently, to a large extent, what John's Gospel is trying to do is show how Jesus truly is that Son, that manifestation of God as Son in the world that fulfills what God has always promised through the people of Israel and the Jewish faith. All right, so this is where we're working toward, is his manifestation, right? Jesus said, okay, this is, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man not have kept this man from blind? Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, okay, remember he had said, where have you laid him earlier? And then he wept. Well, now it says he came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Yeah, this is that thing that points toward what's going to happen to Jesus. Sounds familiar since we've read the end of the story. We know how it ends with the tomb and the stone. Yeah. Verse 39, Jesus said, take away the stone. Martha, remember, she's the one who did the confession earlier, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead 4 days. In the old King James Version, I think it has the word, it stinketh. I heard that in a sermon one day in some Baptist church, I'm sure. Oh Lord, it stinketh. Yeah. All right. Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? Now, he's talking to Martha. And remember, he's the one who he had told her earlier, I am the resurrection, I am the life. And she's, those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Fits the whole purpose of the Gospel of John. Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? Verse 41. So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked upward and said, Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me. This is our little indication from John's gospel that he's not telling us everything that Jesus had already prayed, but here he's doing it as a, remember in John's gospel, there are no miracles. There are only signs. And all of the signs point to the identity of Jesus, who he truly is. And this is one of those signs. I think it might be. No, it's not the seventh sign. I don't think so. It's one of those 7 signs, though, okay? So things that happen aren't just things that happen. They are a sign, which means they point to a truth beyond the actual sign, okay? And here it's pointing, again, toward Jesus as the resurrection, and he's going to embody resurrection in his own self. So his prayer to his Father in heaven, remember, don't let us get confused about this, because we, on the other side of the Trinitarian confession, say, oh, Jesus is God and God is Jesus. Well, remember, in the purposes of John's gospel, he's trying to show how this physical manifestation, this man can possibly be son of God, which is as close as they could get back then. When he had said this, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. In the old King James, it was, Lazarus, come forth. The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go. Yeah, kind of like a Frankenstein's monster mummy kind of a thing. Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what Jesus did, believed in him. Remember how earlier we have that the fact that some of the Jews saw Jesus weep, and they said, see how he loved him. There's the positive response, the appropriate response from some of the Jews, and this is where our passage ends. But I just want to give you a little spoiler. You look at the verse at the end. It says, But some of them went to the Pharisees and told him what he had done. Yeah, so there were some who like they had seen and believed, and they're not going to believe. They're not going to have to play tell on you if they believe. Well, this story illustrates two different responses of how you can respond to Jesus' resurrection. What does this have to do with All Saints Day? Remember, All Saints Day is a celebration of the grace of God expressed through Jesus Christ in the saints, okay? And the fact that Jesus brings back to life Lazarus is that one of those acts that show us that the kind of grace that we have from God is ultimately that which revives us, okay? That gives us life, not just in the future, but right now. Yeah, that's the thing that this gospel emphasizes. Now, you want to look to the future? There you go. Here's our future. Our last passage I'm going to look is our second lesson, the epistle lesson from Revelation chapter 21. Verses 1 through 6a. This should sound familiar. Then I saw. Who's the one seeing? This is the John of Patmos. John of Patmos, the one that he's identified in the first chapter or two as one who was exiled because of the gospel, and we don't know exactly what that means, but it's definitely. All we know for sure is the guy's name was John, and he was exiled, and that this vision for him was like plain as day. And he was told, got to write all this down. Well, what did he see? In this final, or in this portion, in chapters 21 to the first part of chapter 22, we get a whole vision of a new Jerusalem. One of the characteristics of apocalyptic literature is a view of the end. It skips past the present to the end. It's not like prophetic literature. Prophetic literature and prophetic utterances are those things that give us advice, exhortation, that kind of thing that lifts us up, that moves us forward. And like, okay, if this, then this, the future's not that, because if you change your ways, it's going to create a different path for you, and you're going to experience God in a different way, and your life is going to be different, and your experience. This genre of literature, apocalyptic, doesn't give a rat's patootie about your present experience. It doesn't have. It is basically saying, yeah, we know it's bad. You think it's bad? Yeah, we know it's bad. You want to know how it's actually going to turn out? This is how it's going to turn out. So that's what apocalyptic literature is. It's something that skips over the present to the very end, that reveals, hey, this is what's going to happen in the end, despite the horribleness of your experience now. Yeah. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. And the sea, the sea? What about the sea? Remember what the sea was. The sea is that chaos, that the waters, that primordial ooze, the storm, out of which God created the world and put this this bubble of sanity inside of all of this chaos and insanity. And the sea, that sea, was no more. Yeah, that's the vision of the end. Oh, that thing that God injected creation into, that's gone. It's all gone, okay? Which is awesome, because nothing bespeaks our present sense of dread and those things of like, oh, what could go wrong now? Oh, well, things will go pretty good as long as this doesn't happen, as long as that. Even the possibility of something bad gone. Yeah, and the sea was no more. Verse 2. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem. Not the old Jerusalem, not that Jerusalem that is that site of it's a holy place, and there's a whole lot of conflict there. Oh yeah, and there's this and there's that, and there's battles over this and that, and who's got control of this and who's that. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem. Not the old Jerusalem, not the Jerusalem of conflict, not the Jerusalem of like where where is God? The new Jerusalem coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Not intended to be sexist here. It's merely a descriptive, a metaphorical way of describing, how beautiful a bride is, right? Oh yeah, he looks so beautiful. You don't say that she's not, even if she's not. But yeah, that sense of like, oh, she's never been more beautiful. It's trying to play on those experiences we've had as humans in describing this. So it's all metaphorical, right? Prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, okay, the throne, if it's from the throne, it's from God. Remember, a lot of what we have in Revelation is we got the throne of God, and we've got the 24 elders around and circling the thrones, casting their crowns and all praising, and then these things happen on these tableaus, okay? And this is one of those. This is that the physical scene with the throne, okay? And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, see, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people. That for dwell is another word for tabernacle. Tabernacle, what was the tabernacle? Is that the presence of God in the wilderness? That promise of no matter where you are, God is there, okay? He will dwell with them, and they will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them. This is a quotation that we get from, Ezekiel. We had a little bit of this from Ezekiel. We had also this, a reminder of this from Hosea, when the covenant was broken, said, I am not their God, and I am not and they are not my people. The prophetic thing of like, oh, you better watch out. This is an apocalyptic utterance that promises us God's presence. In the end, we're all getting God's presence, and there's not going to be any doubt about that by anyone. It will be clear by anyone who's willing to see. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Oh, sound familiar? Death will be no more. Sound familiar? Yeah, we had that from Isaiah, right? Even from our passage today, from chapter 25. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more. Remember, this is a reference to the present circumstances. It doesn't matter what we are experiencing. This is not something that tells us how it's going to turn out. That's what we're experiencing now is just our experience. It's not what it's not the reality that it's not how it's going to end. Okay. Mourning, crying, and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away. The first things, that the experience of creation, the experience of even you think of the Garden of Eden, you think of the impact of sin and how that infected the world and how that's created all the horrible circumstances. The first things have passed away. All of creation, as good as it was, and then it went, the direction it went, all those first things have passed away. And the one who was seated on the throne said, see, I am making all things new. All things. This is the apocalyptic promise, right? Remember, what is All Saints Day about? It's about celebrating the grace of God in the love of Jesus as expressed in the saints, right? I am making all things new. So anything that was bad in everything that was old is renewed, okay? All those experiences of the past, like they never even happened. Also, he said, write this. It's not the first time that the heavenly voice is, said, write this thing down. Earlier, it was an angel that was talking to John. Write this, for these words are trustworthy and true. All right, what's it? What is it? What is it that he wants to write down that's trustworthy and true? Then he said to me, it is done. It is done. What were those words of Jesus on the cross? It is done. It is finished, right? Same thing. The work of God toward salvation of all of humanity, done. Yeah, that's the grace of God in Jesus Christ that we get to experience, and as manifested by the lives of people who have gone before us. Then he said, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Yeah, so just as I started this world, I'm going to end it, okay? And it's all going to turn out fine. Okay, that's the end of our passage. The passage goes on, but that's the end of what we have to celebrate for All Saints Day. So I hope you enjoyed that. And I bid a happy All Saints Day to everyone. Until next time, peace.